Okay, now I plugged my cotton wool plug to the my funnel. Now I add sodium sulfate layer onto the cotton wool plug. This is sodium sulfate. Always use new sodium sulfate. Some people use expired sodium sulfate also because they don't have new sodium sulfates in their labs, but always try to use new sodium sulfates. Expiry date is 2023. So we had this anhydrous sodium sulfate, actually anhydrous sodium sulfate amounts onto my funnel. Use sufficient amount. I add more amounts to get the proper layer. Five to six spatulas. I think it's sufficient. Keep your sodium sulfate in sealed manner because they are very easily absorb water. Always try to store them in a desiccators. Okay, now in the desiccator, now move on to the upper table. Now our setup is finished. Now we connect our vacuum system. Okay. Now our setup is finished. Switch on the tap. Now vacuum is building inside of this flask. But initially we have to add small amount of petroleum ether, fresh petroleum ether, because if there are unnecessary things inside of the glasswares, they will wash unless our carotenoid sample will contaminate. So you have to wash properly glassware and sodium sulfate and cotton wool plug, everything initially by adding petroleum ether. It is the best way to get rid of contaminations. Okay, now you can see the petroleum ether goes to our rotovapor flask. They are filtering. If there are some water, some air bubbles trapped in this cotton wool plug, they will affect to our filtration process. So add sufficient amount of petroleum ether and get rid of air bubbles and other contaminations. Okay. Okay, now it sufficient. I will remove these initial petroleum ether wash and I will dry my flask. Okay, we done. We discarded the pet ether, initial pet ether layer. Okay, now our system is clear. Now we use this type of somewhat large parcher pipette or dropper. We will transfer this upper petroleum ether layer of the separatory funnel into this funnel. Why? You will directly ask me a question. We can easily discard this lower aqueous portion and easily we can transfer this petroleum ether layer through this tube into our funnel. Yes, that's a good question, but you have to remember that initially we had a small amount of petroleum ether and we separated some amount of carotenoid into the petroleum ether, but there are some amount of carotenoids also remain here also in aqueous portion. We have to re-add fresh petroleum ether and again we have to do partitioning several times, 3 to 5 times. So we don't discard this aqueous layer because it also contains another small portion of carotenoids also. So initially we will get this petroleum ether layer like this and they will transfer into the funnel. And they will filter into the flask. That's the partitioning procedure. It's filtering. You have to remember that. Initially I told you carotenoids are very light sensitive, so we have to cover the rotovapor flask also using aluminium foils. Get rid of light. I covered one part, another part is remain here. I will not cover because you can't see if I close. So please look at that. When we are transferring from one glass vase to another, there is a great possibility to lose our carotenoids because some drops may split into the environment. So please be careful when you are transferring separatory funnels to the funnel. Okay, I added my initial PET ether layer into the funnel and I filtered. My filtrate is this. So there are more carotenoids in this aqueous layer also. So I have to add another portion of petroleum ether and I will shake one time. Keep it to separate, allow it to separate and get that layer again and filter it. Do this step several times until the PET ether, partition PET ether layer close to white color. This is pale green now. Finally they will appear as colorless liquid. That means you have partitioned and extract all the carotenoids and pigment into this petroleum ether and you already filtered it. Okay, now I extracted 3 times. Now you can see the upper layer is colorless. That means we extracted all the colored compounds. You can see inside the partial pipette also it's colorless. It means now it's enough partitioning. We extracted all the carotenoids and chlorophylls. Okay, that's the partitioning procedure. After adding all the petroleum ether portion, we have to wash the funnel and sodium sulfate layer and this glass vase before this remove them from the setup, because there may be some trapped carotenoids are present in these glasswares. Actually, the dry petroleum ether evaporated easily. When they are evaporating, our pigments may remain in the glasswares and on the sodium sulfates. So we have to wash it properly using more petroleum ether. When we first of all, we have to remove the funnel, because we initially washed it. No, now we wash lower glasswares. Okay, now we remove the upper part and we will close the tap. Okay, now we will remove these upper parts. This is your pigments of carotenoids and chlorophylls. Now we got the pigments but with petroleum ether. So get pure pigment, we have to remove this petroleum ether. So we have to connect this flask into the our rotary evaporator, and we will evaporate this petroleum ether, and we will separate our pigments into a small tubes. This is the end of the partitioning procedure.